Okay, and we're live. Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Let's Get Real. I've had a great week. I don't know about you, but I took a vacation. So if you haven't done that recently, I highly recommend it. It was a great time. We did not really do anything. We got up, we worked out, we laid out, we ate good food. It was a great time. So I highly recommend it. If you haven't taken a vacation, definitely do it. But we are back. It's Monday morning. You know, I love a good Monday. Got up, did my workout, got moving. So I hope that you are starting off your week and ready to go. So today, I hope that you will join me in welcoming Jim Fuhs. Jim is president of Fuhsion Marketing. He is a retired Marine lieutenant colonel turned digital marketing consultant, speaker, live streamer, podcaster, remote live stream, and virtual event producer with over 30 years of business and social media experience. Jim does marketing the Marine Corps way and fuses Marine Corps leadership with marketing. His 20 plus years of highly successful leadership experience as a Marine Corps officer lets him bring that to bear in the ever-changing world of marketing and technology. Jim, I am so excited to have you here today, especially given all of your wealth of knowledge of producing shows. You know, I'm on episode 13, but I still feel like I'm very new to this. So I appreciate all of your insights and advice as we go.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Shane. It's really exciting to be here. Hope everybody had a great weekend this past weekend. It was nice finally. Got outside, so it's great to be here and get the week kicked off with a great show. You're doing a great job.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Before we went live, Jim was actually giving me some advice on how to improve my sound. There's always areas for improvement. So I've written down a couple of microphones. So maybe in the next few weeks it'll sound even better. So every week I learn something new, as you know. Jim and we met on Twitter. As so many of my guests, I met you on Twitter. And what I find is that it is so easy to just be yourself on Twitter. So we've been doing this for a long time, both of us, but we just met through the pandemic and kind of being stuck inside, and Twitter's sort of been our window on the world. So I feel like we're old friends, and I'm really honored that you're here and that I get to know you.
Thanks. Yeah, yeah. Twitter is amazing. I can't believe how many people I've met through that. So I always kind of scratch my head when people like say I don't like Twitter. It's like you just got to give it a chance, right?
Yeah, you just got to give it a chance. So talk a little bit, just kind of, I know I read your bio, but tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, what is Fuhsion Marketing, and what isn't Fuhsion Marketing?
Yeah, so I'm located in the Atlanta, Georgia area, but I lived in North Carolina for up until 2018, and actually, combination of getting remarried and my wife lived here, and Hurricane Florence, which caused thousands and thousands of dollars of damage to my house in Swansboro, made me relocate. But there was other couple things I learned. Was one, I was too hyper local. Even though I
Mm-hmm.
could do stuff with the internet, I was like so focused on local businesses, I had forgotten, like, hey, I can meet people by Zoom and things of that nature. So I changed my business model where it became more about, letting people know I could work with them just about anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And so where I used to be much more like you, a social media manager,
Mm-hmm.
I've evolved to where I do more of consulting. I
Mm-hmm.
do a lot of training. I still work with a couple of community colleges in North Carolina, and I teach just about every social platform, I would say, with the exception of Snapchat and TikTok right now, because I don't really do much with those. I don't know, maybe you do, Shane. And then I also help people get started with live streaming, as well as I got into, and really because of the pandemic, helping people produce shows, getting ready to help a keynote speaker launch a show in the next few weeks, as
Oh,
well
that's
as doing
exciting.
virtual events. So, really, because I started the Tim and Jim show with my friend Tim Sohn in 2018. Like you said, I trust me, I remember when we were on show 13. I actually have a spreadsheet now. I could go find out if we even had a guest. Uh, and now we've done about 132 shows just on that. And then I've also become an Amazon Live influencer. So I'm also in that space. So looking to work with brands where we talk about their products on Amazon. So it's really been exciting how live video really opens up a lot of opportunities, but I really like to help other businesses. So, so what I really am not anymore is I'm not a social media manager per se. Like I would rather, and you and I talked about this, I would rather send them to, businesses like yours because one thing I think you probably run into is businesses don't really understand what they have to do to make their social media management successful. It's not just about
Mhm.
like saying, "Hey Shane, I need you to post for me every week so many times a day." It's like, "Okay, but I need some content from you to make
Right.
this work."
Yeah, I get that question a lot. How many posts do you do a week? That's not really a question that I answer because it's not about the quantity of posts. It's about the quality and what you've got and what kinds of things are we sharing. And we may have more than one a day. We may have three a day. We may have nothing a day. We may be in a tweet chat for 3 hours that day. And I can't even count that number. There's so many of
Right,
them.
right, right, and
So,
now with,
yeah,
Clubhouse and Twitter
right,
Spaces, you might even, and then it's like, do you want me to talk for you, or do you need to get in there and be your own brand voice? That's a whole
right.
'nother conversation.
Right. And it's always best when they'll collaborate. We've got a few clients who, for the most part, we post on their behalf, we share, we engage, we get into conversation for them. But sometimes they've got a great piece of content and they're going to put it out there on their own. And that's totally fine. As long as we're collaborating, we know when they're doing that so we don't double post. That never
Mhm,
works.
right.
So I know that your background is in the Marine Corps and that you've taken that into your life now as a marketer and as a leader. How do you kind of meld that together and how does that work for your clients?
Well, I would say one thing is, I talk about the Marine Corps and the military in general. We have what we call this 5 paragraph order format, and there's an acronym for it. It's called SMEAC, and in some aspects, it actually parallels some of the things we hear about in business as well. So the first thing I would equate it a little bit to SMART goals. That's probably what I'd say. So the first is the situation, like, what is going on? What is it that we're looking to
Hmm.
solve the problem? Because we're all problem solvers. I think
Right.
sometimes as business owners, we forget that. The next thing is the mission and what exactly is the business looking to accomplish? And so we analyze that mission, make sure we're getting on target with that. And then next is execution. What is the plan to make this happen? And what are the milestones that we're going to be looking at in order to make sure that we're on track with that?
Hmm.
The next thing is what we call administration and logistics. That's the A. And that's really about what are the resources we need? As an example, like, oh, we want to do a live show. Okay, well, what software are we going to use, right? Are we going to use Switcher? Are we going to use StreamYard? Are we going to use Restream? Are we going to use Ecamm? Like, do you have the microphones? Do you have a time setup? All these little things get into that. Who's going to provide that resource? Am I going to provide it? Is the client going to provide it?
Hmm.
And then we have command and control. And that is basically, you know, who are the people that I'm going to talk to, who's going to be decision makers. And so it really lays it out nice and clean.
Hmm.
And then I think the other piece of the military part that helps me is the whole adapt and overcome. I would even think that what I've been able to do over the last year where we've seen other businesses struggle is, okay, we've got a pandemic as opposed to saying, the sky is falling. All right, what do we need to do different? Let's just get it
Right.
done, move forward. We have to constantly be realizing, right? Change is constant.
Hmm.
People always act like, oh, we don't want our town to change. Well, you can either manage the change or the change is going to manage you because there's just change is inevitable no matter where we live and what we do. And I mean, we can talk about all those social media platforms that have gone away. I mean, you hear people like, oh, I miss Blab and, things like that.
Right.
MySpace, is how a lot of people started. I
Hmm.
didn't, but those are the sort of things that we just, we have to be prepared for.
Right.
And so I think that's where my training and then I'm also, some people like it, some people don't, and that's okay. I'm very direct, right?
Hmm.
This is how it has to be. If you're not willing to make that hard decision, then maybe we're not the right fit for each other. And I think that that's important as well. That and I think I'm sure you deal with that too, right?
Yeah,
Everybody is not my client.
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I think that, sometimes there comes a time with a client when we're just not seeing eye to eye. And I think sometimes clients might forget why they've hired us. They want their social to be one way, and we don't believe that that's going to work.
Right,
So we try to collaborate. We try to continue to educate our clients over time. And even within the platforms, you talked about some of the platforms have gone away. Even the ones that have remained, they change. They're constantly. I mean, every time I look at Facebook and try to run an ad, they've moved. I can't find it. Where'd they
right,
put it?
right.
So it's always evolving. In some ways it's always improving, but in some ways it's, there's frustration there. And so I think that if people can hire someone on an outsourced basis for that kind of management, it's one less stress for clients. But I really like what you said about your background from the Marine Corps. It really just gives a great structure to what you're teaching them, and I think it's relatable. People understand that the military functions in a specific way, even if they were never in the military. So I think bringing that kind of foundation and background to your clients, I think that that's it's a cool niche that you've got. So I really
Thanks. Well,
appreciate
and
that.
it's all about systems too, right?
Right,
Everything
right.
is a system and a process because even if, one of my favorite books, if you haven't read it yet, recommend is like the E-Myth series, right?
Hmm.
You have to have systems because the reality is what you and I are doing is not rocket science. And even
Right,
rocket scientists have systems. We just maybe aren't
right.
smart enough to, but by having that process laid out, I can hand
Right,
that over to someone and they can start doing it. And I think
absolutely.
um, that's where I think people struggle because they don't document their processes or create a workflow to, like, oh, how did we do that
Right.
successful thing last time? Well, didn't you write it down?
Right.
Those are the important things. Yeah.
Right, right, exactly. So, talk a little bit about how you got into this whole live streaming. I know we touched on it a little bit, and you've got two shows that you do regularly. How did
Mhm.
you kind of enter into that world? And, where did it come from? Why did you start it? And how's it going?
Yeah, so it all started in 2018. I went to Social Media Marketing World in San Diego, and I met Kelly Noble Mirabella, and she's actually right now probably one of the top people in chatbots, which is a whole nother category.
Yeah.
Um, but she was doing a Facebook Live challenge, and she's like, hey, why don't you join my Facebook group? We're going to do this challenge. And I knew that Facebook Live was starting to become a thing, and it's like, yeah, I know I should get on camera. I don't know why would anybody want to listen to me on camera, that kind of thing, like, which we all go through, right? The imposter syndrome.
Oh,
So I did the challenge, and I started to get a little bit more confidence, and then I was literally. I had started to do, and some people watching may not have heard of this Instagram TV
uh-huh.
videos, and I was watching a show, and I think, they were using, at the time, Be Live, and they're like, "Hey, does anybody know anything about Instagram TV?" And I just put, like, a comment, "Yeah, I," and so they brought me on. Well,
Okay.
Tim Sohn happened to be watching that episode, and he's like, "Hey, how'd you like to be on my show as a guest?" So we talked about Google My Business, which is another thing I really, know a lot about, and, so he's like, "Hey, how'd you like to do a show?" And I was and it was one of those. It is like, you know what? It would be nice to do a show with somebody,
Mm-hmm.
and it really, it helped because I think it helped keep us accountable, right? It's like, kudos to you. I'm sure it's so easy sometimes to say, "Well, I don't really know if I can go live next week because I got," you have to really stick to being committed because it's that consistency that's
Mm-hmm.
going to grow your show's ability. And then you're going to, just like you probably feel, right? I always say, try to get 1% better every time, right?
Right,
Don't try to feel
right.
like you got to go crazy. So yeah, so we started in August of 2018. I think last week was our 132nd episode. I've now done, as of Friday, I did my 50th episode on Amazon, as well, and then I also guest co-host on another show. But those two shows are really the ones that I enjoy. But yeah, it's led to meeting people, having
Hmm.
some incredible conversations with some incredible people, and it's a lot of fun, right?
Yeah.
I prefer video over writing, to be honest, because and
Ah,
I'm sure I could take my videos and transcribe them, but I just think it's easier, right? And then
yeah,
you can repurpose this in so many ways,
absolutely. Yeah. Well, and you can really just be yourself. I mean, I'm one person on Twitter, but when you see me talking with my hands and,
right?
that's who I am. So, and
Right.
and the same goes for you too. When I watch you on your show, I feel like I know you. And I feel like I know people through Twitter, but it's different when I can actually see the person and listen to them and watch their mannerisms. There's something to
It
it.
it's really exciting, and even with Clubhouse, it was exciting, like,
Yeah.
people I had met on Twitter, like, Gabrielle Cardoza, who I'd never met
Uh-huh.
in person. I got to hear her voice, I was, like, so excited, like, "Oh my gosh, Gabby, I got to hear what you sound like."
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I had
It
that experience with, I don't know if you know Jeanettepeer, but I've known Jeanette for
Yes,
like 10 years on Twitter, and she was doing, she loves Flipboard. And so she was doing a
yes.
Flipboard Clubhouse, and I went on and listened to her. I had no idea she had a British accent until I heard her. And it was like, how could I have known you all this time and not known this?
Right, right. Well, because she doesn't do a lot of video, but
Right.
she did come on the Tim and Jim show, so if you go back
Yeah.
and look, you can see we talked about Flipboard, and yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and the Twitter Smarter Chat she did about Flipboard,
Hmm.
that got me to start using Flipboard because I was just, like,
Oh,
blown away by her knowledge on that
yeah.
platform and what you can
Yeah.
do with it.
Yeah, it's fascinating. It's so cool. Okay,
Yeah.
so let's talk about where are we headed. What do you think? We seem to be seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. I told you earlier I'm getting my second vaccine today. I mean, this Today Show focused on people going back to work and what that's going to look like. Where do you think marketing's headed in the next year or beyond? Where do you think things are going to change?
I think that video will continue to grow because I think, one, it allows us to communicate, it's like every sense, but, I guess taste, touch, and smell at the moment is not
Hmm.
available. But, I don't know if you got one of those Oculus Quest yet where you've got virtual reality, but there's a couple things I think that occurred with the pandemic that have made companies pause for thought. As much as we wanna do these in-person events,
Hmm.
there was some amazing virtual events that allowed people to participate without any geographical boundaries. So that's an opportunity that you don't wanna give up on just because, "Oh, well, we wanna do in person." So I think hybrid will continue to grow,
Hmm.
and I think that's gonna be an opportunity as well for businesses that can figure out a way to do it right.
Hmm.
I think that things like Zoom, I think people are like looking at valuing their time more. So it's like, do I really want to drive to the coffee shop to meet with
Yeah.
somebody when I could just do a Zoom call, be
Right.
done, go to the next Zoom call, save all that wear and tear on my vehicle, and just be more productive.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that's another thing. And then I think the virtual space will continue. I don't know if it'll it's that whole thing. We're never gonna go back to the way things were before, in my
No,
opinion. But
I
I
agree.
think, um and I think for us as individuals, we'll have to and it's like, do I really wanna travel to that conference, or would I rather be able to attend virtually as long as there's networking available? Because a lot of
Right.
times that's a big part of it, and
Yeah.
like you said, we met through Twitter, right? We're
Mhm.
now on your show because of meeting through Twitter and getting to know each other. So that whole argument that, "Oh, I've gotta go in person to meet people," I don't buy
Yeah,
that. I think
I agree.
it's nice,
Mhm.
right? But it's not necessary in
Right.
my opinion.
Yeah, I
Um,
agree. I agree.
yeah. Yeah, in fact, I just recently worked with a Canadian manufacturing company that was virtually attending an event in Mexico, and we produced their, like, a 15-minute, almost, if you wanna call it, like, interview combined with, videos of their machines at work that they
Oh,
put in their
cool.
video booth. So part of it is they were talking, then they showed the 15 minutes, then they went back to talking. So there's a lot of things you can do if you really just think creatively, like, how
Right.
can we use technology to really up our game. And I think, like,
Yeah.
even what what you're using, Switcher, has a lot of things that people can do if they're willing to kinda think outside the box, and like Apple
Yeah.
products as well.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think all of these things allow us to keep it real. You can be yourself out on social, out on video, whether you're live streaming or on a TV show. It doesn't have to be that different from being in person at a conference or at a meeting. I think that there's so many opportunities here. So, um, yeah, so well said. So Jim, I just want to thank you for coming today. I'm putting your contact information up on the screen. So if people would like to contact you, you can find all of his contact information at taplink.cc/fusion marketing. So definitely follow Jim, connect with him online. He's a wealth of information, as you can see. And if you're looking at starting a live stream, I would probably call Jim before you call me.
Well,
But Jim,
thank you,
thank
Shane.
you for coming. I appreciate it, and I'm so glad to know you. And it's truly it's a pleasure. So thanks for being here
Thank
this
you as well.
morning.
Great to see you.
Thanks, you too.
Alright,
Well,
alright.
thank you everybody for joining me. I hope you got a lot out of that. I know I did. I took a few notes before the call on some things Jim and I were talking about. So always learning, always improving. Next week, I hope you will join me. My guest will be Dennis Shao. Dennis is going to be logging in from the West Coast, and he recently had me as his guest on the Bay Area Marketing Meetup, and I had a great time kind of explaining live streaming for dummies. So if people wanted to start a live stream and they didn't know how, I gave them just some quick pointers on what I know and what I've learned. So I'm excited to have him here, and he's going to bring a lot of information. It's going to be a great conversation. So I'm back from vacation. I've got a busy week. I hope you do too. I'm getting my second vaccine today, so I'm ready for life to get back to normal. I hope you have a fantastic week. See you next week.